Hi guys, today we're going to be learning about independent and dependent variables. Now an independent variable causes change on the dependent variable, and the dependent variable is affected by the independent variable. So we're going to take math and science, guys, and we're going to weave them together. Let's get started. Max is shipping a present to his grandmother. It's so nice of Max. What are three factors that will affect the weight of the box? What are three factors that will not affect the weight of the box? All right, you guys do this now in your math book. Hopefully you have your math book. If not, just do it in your math notebook. Hopefully you have your math notebook. If not, just do it on a piece of paper. And go ahead and get started on this. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, maybe three things you picked that will affect the weight of the box. Maybe it's the size of the box. Maybe it's the box materials. And maybe it's what you put in the box. Like, did you put in some weights to get strong? You know, like some 25-pound dumbbells or something in there. And what are three things that are not a factor? Well, the color of the box, that's not a factor. That's not going to affect the weight. The day the box was made, who cares? That's not going to affect the weight. The name of the box manufacturer, irrelevant. Let's see what the next part says. How might the size of the box and the contents of the box affect the weight of the box? So try this one now. Well, here's how it might affect the box. The bigger the box is, the more material is used to make the box, which makes the box heavier, if even by a little bit. If the contents of the box are heavy, the box may need to be made from different material, which can make the box heavier. All right, so let's get going with the meat of the lesson. That was the problem of the day. And here we go, guys. Listen to this.
What does it mean for one quantity to be dependent on another quantity? Think about this question during the lesson. An orchard sells apples by the pound. Each day, P pounds of apples are sold, and the amount of money taken in, M, is recorded. Which variable, P or M, depends on the other variable? What are the quantities that change in this problem? How are these quantities represented? The quantities that change are the number of pounds of apples sold and the amount of money the orchard takes in. The quantities are represented with the variables P for pounds of apples and M for money. How can you determine which variable depends on the other?
All right, so we have pounds of apples sold and M, the amount of money taken in. So which one's the independent, which one's the dependent variable? Let's think about this. The amount of pounds you sell will determine the amount of money taken in. So the pounds you sell is independent, and it causes a change and it affects the amount of money you make. So the amount of money taken in. So the amount of money taken in would be a dependent variable because it's dependent upon the amount of pounds being sold. Let's watch.
To determine which variable depends on the other, think about what comes first and what follows in response. You weigh the apples, and then you pay. The amount of money depends on the number of pounds of apples.
When you think about how total cost is dependent on the amount and price of items sold, you are reasoning quantitatively.
A dependent variable changes in response to another variable. For the apple orchard, the amount of money, M, taken in, depends on the number of pounds, P, of apples sold. The more pounds sold, the more money taken in. Which is the dependent variable?
Select your answer.
All right, guys, which one do you think it is? Which one's the dependent variable? Remember, the amount of pounds sold determines the money taken in. So the amount of money is dependent because it's determined by the independent variable P. So the dependent variable is M. Nice job.
You can call M, the amount of money taken in, the dependent variable. An independent variable causes the dependent variable to change. The number of pounds of apples sold, P, is the independent variable. How does the number of pounds of apples sold affect the amount of money the orchard takes in? What would happen if they sold no apples?
Well, if you sell no apples, you make no money.
If the orchard sells more apples, they make more money. If they sold no apples, they would take in no money.
All right, let's do this together. This is a pretty valuable exercise here. Select a variable to see if it is the dependent variable or the independent variable. So the number of people, P, who buy popcorn and the number of ounces, S, of popcorn sold. So let's see what do you think is the independent variable and the dependent variable? Which one's the independent? Which one's the dependent? You ready? All right. P is the independent variable. A change in the number of people who buy popcorn changes the number of ounces that are sold. And S is the dependent variable, the number of ounces. The number of ounces of popcorn that are sold depends on the number of people who buy popcorn. So the people who buy popcorn determines the number of ounces that are being sold. Independent, dependent. The number of light bulbs, L, that a machine produces and the number of hours, H, the machine runs. Which one here is the independent variable and which one's the dependent variable? Try this now. Well, let's take a look. The L is the dependent variable, so the number of light bulbs. And that's the dependent variable because the number of light bulbs that a machine produces depends on the number of hours the machine runs. So the more hours you're running the machine, the more light bulbs are going to be produced. So H, hours, is the independent variable because a change in the number of hours the machine runs changes the number of light bulbs that the machine produces. Let's try the next one. The temperature T of an oven and the number of minutes, M, it takes to cook a fish fillet. All right, what do you think, guys? Which one's the independent, which one's the dependent variable? Let's see. Well, T is the independent variable. The temperature is the independent variable because a change in the temperature of an oven changes the number of minutes it takes to cook a fish fillet. And M is the dependent variable because the number of minutes it takes to cook a fish fillet depends on the temperature of the oven. The weight W of birdseed needed at a zoo and the number of birds B at the zoo. Well, let's see. Which one's the independent variable? Which one's the dependent variable? What do you think, guys? Well, the weight is the dependent variable because the weight of the birdseed needed at the zoo depends on the number of birds at the zoo. So if you only have like a couple birds at the zoo, you don't need that much bird seed. But if you have a lot of birds at the zoo, like I think the zoo has, you would need a massive amount of bird seed if they all have the same diet of bird seed. Maybe there's different flavors. So the number of birds, B, is the independent variable. A change in the number of birds at the zoo changes the weight of the birdseed that is needed. Here we go. I know this is like, right? With all this.
When the orchard sells 50 pounds of apples for a certain price, it will take in less than when it sells 65 pounds of the same apples. This is because the dependent variable, M, changes in response to the independent variable, P. Now you know what it means for one quantity to be dependent on another quantity.
You guys try this one in your EnVision book. A baker used a certain number of cups of batter, B, to make P pancakes, or as we like to call them, P cakes. Which variable P, pancakes, P cakes, or B, batter, is the dependent variable? All right, so you're making pancakes, right? And you have batter and pancakes. Which one's the independent variable? Which one's the dependent variable? They want to know here which one is the dependent variable. What do you think? Write it in your book now while I do a little dance. Okay, the dance is over. Not much of a dancer. Or pause the video. Here we go. What did you guys get? Well, the batter B is the independent variable because the amount of batter determines the amount of pancakes you can make. So therefore, they want to know the dependent variable. And the dependent variable is P, pancakes, because the number of pancakes you can make is dependent upon the number of cups of batter you use. So the answer here is the pancakes because it's dependent upon the amount of batter you use. Write it down in your EnVision book. Let's see this one.
If the baker doubles the number of cups of batter used, B, what would you expect to happen to the number of pancakes made, P? Explain.
All right, so if you double the batter, would you say it's a fair statement that you would double the amount of pancakes you're able to make? Yeah, that's true. If you have more batter, you can make more pea cakes. All right, we're in a bike shop. Have you ever gone to vacation, maybe Mackinac Island or Florida or the beach or something like that, and you can rent a bike? I think I did this in New York City through Central Park, and you have something like the price per day for beach cruiser is $18. Or for the whole week would be $50. I mean, so there's a certain point, like, for example, let's say Kings Island. You're about ready to become of an age. I think I was in 7th grade when I was able to go to Kings Island with like some friends, and I would convince my mom to get me a Kings Island pass to go in 7th grade, parent drop-off. And I'd say to her, Mom, look, I'm planning on going with my friends multiple times. And if I just go 3 times, I'll pay for that pays for the pass, and then everything else is free because it's like 3 admissions. So I think with Kings Island, it's like 2.5 admissions end up paying for the whole pass. So if you plan on going more than 2.5 times, I would get a Kings Island pass. And it's the same thing like when you have these prices, like where the price per day and how many, like if you're going to rent it for, let's just do some calculations. Let's do like 4 days. 18 times 4 is $72. Well, if you're going to rent it for 4 days, you might as well just rent it for a week is what I'm saying, right? So just some math things that go on in our heads a lot. So let's read what they're going for.
A bike shop rents beach cruiser bikes and mountain bikes. Customers can rent these items by the day or the week. What are the independent and dependent variables involved in the cost of rental?
All right, so let's take a look. Identify the variables involved in the cost of the rental. So we have beach cruiser B, mountain bike M, the length of the rental L, the price per day D, the price per week W, and the total rental cost T. All right. Now, which ones are the independent and which ones are the dependent variable? So the beach cruiser B, that's pretty much dependent upon how long you want to rent it. The mountain bike M is dependent upon, are you renting it for a day, 2 days, a week? What are you doing? The length of the rental L, or the length of the rental, that's the independent. That's gonna cost change in the amount of money you're paying. The price per day. Well, the price per day, I think, is independent. And the price per week. Well, the price per week is independent because that is the same amount per week, and the total cost is dependent upon what you're doing here. So the total cost is dependent upon how many days or weeks you're going to rent this bike. I mean, probably if you're on vacation, just one day, right? I mean, do we want to do it for more than one day? There's an outing. There's other things to do. Here we go. All right. So, yep. Total cost. Yep, we got those right. Jenna.
Jenna wants to rent a mountain bike by the week. Identify the dependent variable that affects the total rental cost.
All right, you guys try to do this one now. All right, did you get it? So maybe you wrote this. The total, it's hard to write on the screen if it looks like I'm not writing very well. The total rental cost, T, is affected by the length of rental L and the price per week W. All right, so something to keep in mind here is this. A dependent variable changes in response to another variable called an independent variable. An independent variable causes the change in the dependent variable. It is a independent because its value is not affected by other values. All right, now, guys, let's look in our book and do problems 5 through 20. All right, go ahead and do those now. But let me give you some examples. So look at number 4 in our book. The amount of money M earned if T raffle tickets are sold. In the directions, which is important to read, identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. All right, so the amount of money M earned if T raffle tickets are sold. So the independent variable would be the raffle tickets sold, and the dependent variable would be the money earned from the tickets. So the money M is dependent upon the raffle tickets sold, which is the independent variable. All right, let's try number 5. The number of hours H worked and the amount of money M earned. All right, what's the independent and what's the dependent variable? The number of hours H worked and the amount of money M earned. Well, the number of hours H is the independent variable, and the amount of money earned, M, is the dependent variable. I mean, the amount of hours you work determine the amount of money you make. Number 6, the number of shelves S in a bookcase and the number of books B the number of shelves S in a bookcase and the number of books B the bookcase can hold. So the independent variable is S, the number of shelves, and the dependent variable is B, the number of books. Number 7, the number of pages P you read in your book in H hours. So the number of pages P you read in your book in H hours. So the independent variable is H, the hours, because that determines the number of pages you have, P. So the number of pages, P, is dependent upon the number of hours you're spending reading. Although it kind of can go both ways, you know what I mean? Like the amount of pages determines the amount of hours. But for our purposes, for number 7, the independent variable is H and the dependent variable is P. But do you see how it's kind of like secular, which gets confusing? I know. Trust me, I know. I get confused on some of these. Some of these are like too symbiotic, well, they kind of both could affect, depending on how you look at it. There's some like that in the practice and problem solving. Depending on how you look at it. Let me see. The number of gallons G of water a garden hose produces after running for M minutes. Well, the number of gallons is dependent upon the amount of minutes the hose is running. So the independent variable is M, minutes, and the dependent variable is G, gallons. Number 9, the number of peaches Y a farmer harvests in X bushels. So the number of peaches Y a farmer harvests in X bushels. So the independent variable is X and the dependent variable is Y. All right, guys, I hope you can finish the rest of those on your own. Thanks for learning about independent and dependent variables. Remember, an independent variable causes change on the dependent variable. And you guys do the rest of them. I'll post the answer key on Class Dojo. And I will see you later. Try to be up through 4-6 or 4-7, practice and problem solving. Make sure the mid-topic 4 test is all finished. And do all the retake quizzes that you can to best increase your grade. And make sure the practice and problem solvings are all 90% or higher so that you can strive for excellence. I'll see you later, guys. You guys are awesome. Bye.